Good evening, everyone. I hope you all have enjoyed your morning workshops. I'm Anjali Agarwal, a second year student of the BDES program of Humanizing Technology. On behalf of NMIM School of Design, I extend a warm welcome to parents, faculty, and students. I formally welcome the speaker for today, Mr. Krupalu Mehta. As
Hi.
part of the rollout of the new academic year, NMIM School of Design conduct a week-long orientation program titled DFutura, the future of design. This time, the program is conducted online for the fifth batch of BDES Humanizing Technology. DFutura stands for the futuristic view of design, showcasing its transitory, collaborative, and technology-driven nature. The program comprises of speaker session and workshop that hopes to inspire the student as well as open a window to their 4-year journey at the school. We continue with the Get Inspired Talk series, a part of the Futura orientation program, inspiring talks to broaden our horizons. Since this is a virtual event, we request you to mute your microphones and close your videos. However, questions are more taking them at the end. The more you question, the more you explore. Without much ado, let me introduce Mr. Krupalu Mehta. Mr. Krupalu Mehta founded a company in 2016 to develop immersive solutions based on virtual, augmented, and mixed reality technologies for various sectors. Currently, working with defense, health, and manufacturing sectors to revolutionize remote training and assistance with extended reality. Today, Mr. Krupalu Mehta will talk about designing for the metaverse. Look forward to an engaging session, Mr. Krupalu Mehta. The virtual stage is yours.
Thank you. Thank you, Anjali. And I'm really honored to be here. Um, I hope I'm audible and I'm very happy to see so many people joining in uh, and so much young energy that's being transmitted to me virtually. So hopefully this session will be very exciting and I'm happy that I'm able to share this knowledge to the new bunch of millennials whom I understand as going to be the natives of the metaverse. So obviously we will come to know what the metaverse is, um, and with my presentation. So can I share my screen?
Yes, sir, please.
So everybody, thank you for having me here. I'm Krupalu Mehta. Like Anjali introduced me, I am the co-founder of Parallax Labs. We are a company who deal in developing virtual, augmented, and mixed reality solutions for various sectors: defense, healthcare, and manufacturing, and retail, and fashion, and automobile. Almost all the sectors where VR is applicable these days. I hope you guys are aware of what virtual reality is. If you're not, I will be introducing the technology a bit to you, just a bit. It's not going to be repetitive. So you must be wondering, what is this guy doing on my screen? I don't know if you guys know him, but he's Travis Scott, and I'm also assuming that most of you over here already know what Fortnite is. So if you don't know what Fortnite is, it's a similar application or game like PUBG, and I'm assuming most of you guys know what PUBG is. So Fortnite actually began before PUBG, and it was developed on the same platform. It was developed for the same purpose, for multiplayer, collaborative and much more immersive sort of gaming, which is there on your phone, and it has caught a lot of attention. So this gentleman, Travis Scott, held a concert in 2020, which was in April, which was the time when COVID had just started, and it was difficult for people to have a proper concert, or a physical concert with so much social gathering. So Travis Scott came up with an idea of doing this concert virtually in the Fortnite game. And would you believe if I tell you that 12 million people attended his concert virtually, which ideally didn't even happen? So it is something that we can think about what is this giving birth to? This is not gaming. So Fortnite being a game is not limited to being just a game. This is giving birth to something else. It's giving birth to something that we in this industry, at least, or the journalists or the authors have been calling as the metaverse. What is the metaverse? It is a parallel digital universe, if I have to term it in a very literal way, but it is much more enhanced. It is much more integrated from with our real world. So the metaverse is, I would say, in a sense, a mirrored reality. It is something that what we are trying to achieve, and sort of have a duplicate universe for ourselves, which is a complete digital copy. So everything that you do in your real life, we are just trying to mirror it in a way, in a sense, digitally. So what we are calling this in the current scenario is digital transformation. Wherever you go, earlier you used to stand by the roads and raise your hands. I don't know if you as millennials have done that, but people like me, or maybe your parents have been through the struggles of the times when the digital era didn't exist. So you would stand on the road and ask for a cab and waving your hands for hours, standing in rain, but the cab wouldn't come. Now you have the comfort of sitting at your home and calling for an Uber, or probably ordering a pizza, or even doing stuff like watching football, FIFA, with your friends in virtual reality, who are sitting somewhere else in the world. So in bits and pieces, this digital transformation that has taken place from the actual real world is sort of a mirrored reality. We are trying to do tasks which are not possible by us physically, virtually. Okay, and the biggest example has been set by the whole COVID pandemic that we've been seeing. And right now, what we're doing is a virtual seminar. We've been parts of hundreds of sessions and seminars where I've physically gone, but these days it's all virtual. So this first phase of transformation is all 2D. We are interacting with this digital world that I'm speaking about in only a 2D way. But metaverse is something where we are not going to deal with screens. What we are going to deal with is a copy of the actual universe, a copy of our actual world. So we would go inside of a physical space which does not actually exist, and it's created. Most of them, most of the world today calls it virtual reality. Now, virtual reality is present everywhere in different ways. It is present in how do I say? It's present in training. It's present in shopping. So you might have seen people in malls, and I did not introduce VR to you. People wearing big glasses and getting immersed, and sitting on a roller coaster. So they do not physically go, but this metaverse is somehow getting created in bits and pieces. Rather, it's more scattered around the world, where ultimately, with the help of the internet, this is going to come together and form an entire universe where this whole place is going to be one, and we all, as human beings, will be a part of that whole big game. So here we are trying to rename the term user by player, because we imagine this whole thing as a big game. It's a big game where we all are players. So it's a mirrored reality. It's much more enhanced. Why is it enhanced? Is because in the metaverse, you might not be yourself. You might be your own avatar. It is more inclusive. Is because you need not have any racial discrimination or any sexual discrimination. So it is much more enhanced. It enhances, and apart from these social factors, it also allows us to get over our biological limitations. You've not traveled to space. We just had Jeff Bezos going to space, but most of us may not earn that much money in our entire lives where we could go to space physically, but we can always go to space in the metaverse. You don't know the quality of VR that you are currently seeing uh, is so real after a few years, where you can't actually distinguish between what is real and what is virtual. So that is where we can call ourselves as in the mid of creation of the metaverse, and it's much more integrated. So whatever happens in the real world gets reflected in the metaverse. You do something in the real world, it gets copied in the metaverse. So to give much more clarity about the impact of metaverse, and to give justice to the topic of designing for the metaverse, why have I chosen uh, designing for the metaverse for people who are getting oriented for the first time regarding design. So you are the people who are taking the onus to design the future digitally, non-digitally, in every possible way, because you're going to be design students, and something that is going to impact us way lot is the metaverse. And that is why we need to know what all are the things where we need to be aware in terms of design. So let's look at the impact. I would want you to watch the next video and replace the term in your mind by by metaverse instead of the web. Whenever it is pronounced in the video, you just replace the word web by metaverse.
Well, I think the internet and the web, there are two exciting things happening in software and in computing today. I think one is objects, but the other one is the web. The web is incredibly exciting because it is the fulfillment of a lot of our dreams, that the computer would ultimately not be primarily a device for computation, but metamorphosize into a device for communication. And with the web, that's finally happening. And secondly, it's exciting because Microsoft doesn't own it, and therefore there's a tremendous amount of innovation happening. So I think that the web is going to be profound in what it does to our society. As you know, about 15% of the goods and services in the US are sold via catalogs or over the television. All that's going to go on the web and more. Billions and billions, soon tens of billions of dollars worth of goods and services are going to be sold on the web. If you could, a way to think about it is the ultimate direct-to-customer distribution channel. Another way to think about it is the smallest company in the world can look as large as the largest company in the world on the web. So I guess I think the web, as we look back 10 years from now, the web is going to be the defining technology, the defining social moment for computing. And I think it's going to be huge. I think it's breathed a whole new generation of life into personal computing. And I think it's going to be huge. Yeah.
So what you've just seen is this guy, Steve Jobs. I guess most of you know him, the founder of Apple. Back in 1995, predicting what the internet is going to be. Now, just imagine yourself today without the internet. We all know what is the impact of the internet today in our lives. And what we can predict is probably in the next 10 years, how metaverse is probably going to just replace the internet. Internet is not just going to be you being on Facebook or on Instagram or on Uber or on Zomato. It might be you sitting with your friend, physically being in Mumbai, the other friend physically being in Belgium, but both sitting in Hawaii sharing a pizza. That is possibly what we are seeing as the metaverse, not in the far future, but in a very near future. And the most contributing factors to this possibility are two technologies, that is virtual reality and augmented reality. The virtual reality, like I said, completely immerses you into a space where you feel like you're not present. And augmented reality is a technology that enhances your reality with superimposition of graphics. So basically overlaying graphics on top of it. So we create virtual worlds which can be visualized through VR. Take, for example, vaccinating the children. So in reality, vaccination is so difficult, but if you put them in the virtual world and then tell them that you're part of the story, and then you vaccinate them, that creates much more impact. That saves us from creating scare for the children. And over here, you have AR campaign where you would get free burgers. So this is what we see as the most contributing technologies. VR and AR as a part of this whole, metaverse thing. And we feel that VR and AR are just, getting developed, getting mature day by day. You wouldn't believe that, what I just said, that you sitting somewhere here, somebody, your friend is sitting somewhere else, but you both are sharing or enjoying probably a movie together, in virtual reality, sitting together. That is right now happening with the devices, which, let's say, Facebook is giving. Microsoft is coming up with its own platform called the Microsoft Mesh that you can probably use to create collaborative experiences. Apple is coming up with its new AR glasses. Instagram is a platform where you're daily using the augmented reality, services, your filters. Snapchat is using it. So everybody is behind, you know, this whole metaverse concept, to see if, if they can get a bigger piece of this whole new movement that is coming in the digital world. So the three most important things, to have and to build the metaverse is, of course, the demand, the software, and the hardware. Now, um, the demand is that, we as the new millennials, or we as the natives of the metaverse, are already quite comfortable with all the services that we are getting. We don't have to take so much trouble. So let's say, take for an example that earlier we used to deposit bank checks, and now everything is net banking. So we are quite happy with the services that we're getting, sitting at the comfort of, of our homes. But what if, you are enabled to do more things with a virtual world? So already Zoom is providing us the platform to communicate with each other in such a fantastic way. um, Imagine we all being together. You see my avatar, and I see your avatar, and all of us are sitting in an auditorium which is designed like a spaceship, and we are on a spaceship talking about underwater experiments. So we can, really go wild with our thinking, with our imagination, and come up with concepts and, solutions that, probably the mankind has never thought of. So obviously the metaverse concept has been originated from sci-fi movies, and that is why I sound so much sci-fi. But that is the truth. Most of our inventions have been influenced by what we have seen in the movies, and you can think about it. So changing, there's this whole demand, software, hardware, and stuff, to what we are talking about is creating more context by comparing how the demand is and whom the demand is coming from, that is a user, and combining the software and hardware to user, experience. So user is from where the demand is coming, and the hardware and software combined creates the whole experience. So let's talk about the user experience, or rather designing the user experience for the metaverse, or contributing to the metaverse. Here, the design shift that we are seeing from the broad human to the individual user marks one of the great leaps in the history of design. With UX, the design has, nearly shaped every interaction in the model world. Earlier, we had only human-centered design. Now we have something called as user experience design. So this UX thing has, changed a lot. It has changed, I would say, industries worth millions and billions of dollars. So on the right side of this image, like you see, you are holding a 2D screen, versus on the left side of the screen, you see this girl is wearing a pair of glasses where she is interacting with the objects in the virtual world. So the shift, the transition from human computer design to user experience marked the change from for the computers as separate from the real world, to computers becoming an intrinsic and a very important part of our real world, of or our world. Similarly, metaverse describes the next stage in the evolutionary journey, or computers as a portal to the new worlds entirely. So we are seeing this, these screens, or these gadgets or these glasses as the next stage in the design shift. So today the design is much more intuitive. It is much more easy to use. When you go to Facebook, when you go to Instagram, all these interfaces are quite easy to use. They are easy to interact with. But when we talk about metaverse, we are not designing for a goal. We are not designing such that the user reaches a goal. Now, you as a user experience designer, when you're designing, let's say, a page on Facebook, you would say, the person should quickly find the phone number of the person who holds the page. So that's the goal for you as a designer. But here, when you're designing the metaverse, you're not designing for a goal, you are creating an entirely immersive environment. So, by accident or by purpose, you're actually designing the new society that is coming in. So, there are lots of things to consider. There are ethics, there is discipline. All your decisions would matter, and we will see how that affects. So, I give an example of the Facebook page. For example, the ethics. Let's take for example. Um, you would let's say as a user would put a comment on Facebook on somebody's page, which can be really really harsh, and that's what happens with most of your celebs and most of you, if you are really famous on your Instagram page or your Instagram live, or let's say Facebook page or something. Putting a comment is quite I would say okay, you can rather ignore. But when you're into the metaverse, it's much more like the real world. You would see that person in person, like you see in the right image. Okay. And doing something like that, allowing the user, or rather the player in this whole big game, to say anything or comment anything to the other user would be disastrous. It would trigger much more emotions, because the metaverse is going to be much more expressive. So um, we are here not to technically discuss each and everything about how the do's and don'ts of the metaverse, but I'm just going to give you a head start of how you could take your approach to be for designing the metaverse. So let's say, for example, all your decisions matter. A poorly designed web page or a poorly designed Facebook page, what will it lead to? It will lead to non-engagement or the user dropping off. Let's say you've created the user experience of the Zomato app, and if I'm trying to search for a simple thing like a samosa on Zomato, and I'm not able to search for it. I can't probably find the search bar. Or probably I think the search bar icon is wrong, and for some reason the user is not able to experience it. What will the user do? He's going to switch from Zomato to Swiggy, or probably from Swiggy to some other application. So this is the max impact that could happen in the current world, which you might as new students to the design school might not even know about these things. These will be introduced to you when you are actually full time into getting educated about design. But these are the things that are being considered for this 2D universe that we are dealing with every day. But we talk about metaverse, a small mistake like that, in uh, let's say when you're designing an immersive space of a marketplace, if you make it too crowded, you'll see a whole migration of probably thousands of people, thousands of avatar moving from one virtual marketplace to the other marketplace. So what we're talking about here is like an entire 3D space. Probably um, let's say Facebook. You're creating a Facebook group. So Facebook and metaverse, how will it be? You will see different avatars. You would see different people looking, at their best. People would create their avatars with all their customizations and all their likings, and you would see all these avatars, probably migrating from one place to the other when they don't like a place. So it's much like the real world design. So like I said, by purpose or not by purpose, you're actually creating um, the the society. You're designing the society, right? So let's look at what are the risks versus what are the opportunities we look at when we're designing the metaverse. Okay, So let's say, for example, in today's world, um, the Twitter or the Facebook is a much more oppressing platform day by day as it gets. That we have seen a lot of people getting banned on Twitter for what they say. It's much more controlled, but the metaverse over here we see as an opportunity could be a platform where people could come in and they could express however they feel, with their emotions, with their faces. So it's just like the real world. So over here you have a great opportunity to, I would say, how do I say? You have the great opportunity to design the metaverse in a way that it's much more fairer, it's much more inclusive, it's much more non-racist than the current platforms are. Or probably it gives much more freedom to people. You know, with the if you compare with the current context or with the current digital universe. So the new metaverse could be, like I said, much more fairer. And the question is that will you be able to do it? So to do that, you will have to actually, as designers, take this onus or take this torch ahead and think that how can you do it. You have to take the lessons, the lean lessons that you've got from designing this digital era that we are currently in, and apply them to the future metaverse, uh, and see if we can create a much more better world. So how would you do it? One is the research, second is collaboration, third is empathy, and fourth is user advocacy. So I see and I would recommend that these four are the pillars of user-centric design or user-centered design, or rather in this new metaverse, we would call it player-centric design, or let's say player design. How would you do that? These four are the pillars which which would remind you of your lessons from this digital era when you're designing the metaverse in the future. So most of you over here might have no clue about what uh, what is the metaverse I'm talking about. Most of you might have not seen what virtual reality is like. But when you experience virtual reality, you will realize what is the potential of this technology in the coming future, in the near future, and how it is going to impact the user experience design or the relation between humans and computers or humans and machines forever. And the onus, or the responsibility is on you as designers, whether you will be having the courage or the vision to take the design in a level that the world is much more better, or rather the metaverse is much more better. That is it from my side. We're throwing the floor open for questions. Thank you.
So, should we like move on with the questions?
Sorry.
You want us to move on with the questions?
Yeah, let's move to the questions.
Okay. I'll request everyone, whoever um, has any sort of question, they can type their questions in the chat box. Also, so I had one question.
Yeah.
Um,
I have one question.
um, yeah. So, Tanya is asking a question. In a metaverse, wouldn't people and individual face an identity crisis?
Okay. So I see your concern, Tanya, and the question is really good. Um, there is a possibility that people might feel the identity crisis, but we see this as a constantly evolving thing, and you in this current world, whenever we try to see the true faces of people, we can never see it. You cannot ever judge a person by the person's face. So I personally think that having an avatar or having the person in reality with their real faces, actual real faces, might really not matter, or probably the metaverse or the avatars would give them the liberty to uh, have the courage to be represented in a way that they would like, you know that they would want. Everybody loves customization, everybody wants superiority. So that's what I think. And that's an advantage. But yes, there would be people who would complain that I would want to see or meet the person in reality, in real world. But like I said, it's an evolving technology, and probably in the coming future we might have solutions where these technologies will take you to a level where you can see the other person not as an avatar but as an actual person, in terms of teleportation. And you would have seen in Star Trek, or holoportation. You might see the holograms. All these things are already happening. You can check out something called as spatial XR. They already allow you to create your own facial avatar. So uh, there are multiple possibilities. We have another question.
Yeah. So the next question is from Nachiket. He says that what percentage involved would human have in the creation and in working of metaverse, or it would be completely taken over by artificial intelligence?
That's a very, very, very good question. Uh, so that's quite interesting. As of now, it's entirely humans, but I would say the environments are procedurally generated. So if you have played games like GTA 5, it's not that every nook and corner of the environment in GTA 5 is created by humans. It is procedurally generated. You would write code, and then AI would generate this whole map or the environment in its all detail. So I would say a lot of it would be taken over after a point by AI, but rather to assist the humans, not to replace the humans, so that we don't have any control. But it's always good to have AI when it is there to assist, but in a limited sense. So if you ask me, which side I would take, when you take an argument from Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg always wants AI to flourish, bypass the humans, and Musk always wants AI to assist humans. I would take Musk's side. So that's my take.
Okay, I think that pretty much cleared us out.
You had a,
Also, I had this. Sorry, sir.
you had a question.
Yeah. I had this question that in this growing time of artificial intelligence, I see that there are fields who are against it, like tourism, because it's going to take places, and they feel that the occupation will be like gone. So, as you said, that it's basically going to be a copy of the actual world. So, like, what is your take on this? Like, because I think there will be too many people against this, because there are hundreds of people involved in tourism business, and if it's going to provide everything to their places only, what are they going to do?
Like I said again, we're not creating the metaverse to replace our universe. It's always something that we're creating as an extended reality. So this whole business of VR, AR, or mixed reality, this as a whole is a combination in our industry is called as extended reality, which we call as XR. Okay, so imagine yourself, visualizing the Eiffel Tower on Olympus Mount on the in one of the valleys in Mars, and you can be surrounded by multiple pop stars, probably all of the pop stars that you want, uh, something like that. So I'm on Musk's side, Elon Musk's side, not Mark's side. Ayushi is asking me. So I just completed. So wouldn't that be much more appreciated, or probably much more control over our digital universe? See, we are anyways going to create a digital universe. I would recommend you guys reading a book called The Inevitable by Kevin Kelly. So Kevin Kelly is one of the probably the founder of the Wired magazine, Wired with a D. So he was also involved with Whole Earth Catalog, the magazine which was the Google for which was the Google for people in 1980s. So Kevin Kelly writes a book Inevitable, and he mentions 12 technological forces that would change the mankind forever, and metaverse is one of them. And why it's called inevitable is because nobody's controlling it; it's just happening. Everybody is just doing it and going towards it. We using Zoom currently for a purpose is a part and movement or probably a step towards having this metaverse somewhere down the line. Facebook also is creating an entire thing called the Facebook Horizons, where you can't, think about things like you have a distant relative staying in some other country. You can never meet him, but when Facebook Horizon comes in, you can have tea with that person every evening, just like you would have, you would do in a normal sense. So that's my take. Uh, and yeah, we are not taking Zuckerberg's side in that sense, where we want AI to replace humans. We are taking Elon Musk's side, where we think AI should be only assisting humans. Partha is, yeah, I'll take this, Sayushi, don't worry. We have seen how the virtual interactions have actually helped us in during the pandemic, but most of it is not at all, not all people are waiting to actually get back offline. Then isn't actually creating a whole virtual world and shifting everything to the virtual making it worse? Can we instead use it to assist actual physical interactions and communications? Yes, that's what we've been speaking about. We don't want, so if you're talking about the pandemic, we are compelled to do this. We never know what nature is going to turn sides on, but we as mankind, in terms of science, we would visualize that we should be ready for anything. Why are we exploring other planets? We are spending millions and billions of dollars over it. Why are we not just creating earth a better place? But there is never a protopia. I mean, there's never a utopia. Not everything is going to be right always. We think we are doing everything that we can to make earth a better place, avoid climate change and stuff. But one fine day there will be something that's going to happen which we're not going to like. So we as mankind, as a scientific unit, have to be ready for the worst and have this world which is much more immersive, much more natural. Actually, how do we see it is that we anyways communicate over these virtual platforms. uh, Metaverse is an attempt to make it much more immersive, much more natural to how the humans are actually in real life. So we are not, we are instead going back from being robots or slaves of our phones to get into a world which is much more connected, where we can communicate much more and bypass our biological limitations. That's very important. So yeah, Medini is asking us, so will the metaverse take over eventually? Uh, it is not going to take over eventually. It's just going to. So I would ask you, to be honest, how many of your friends in your circle are always, or probably are, all the time influenced by the social media universe? You know, everybody lives. You go with a friend to a restaurant to put a snap on Snapchat or put a story on Instagram, but not really enjoy with your friend, right? Is it not true? Rather go with a friend and be with that person in a much more immersive way in a digital universe. I'm not saying you don't go in reality. You would go in reality, but we are anyways doing it. So we are actually trying to get away from it, like I said earlier. Uh, so that's more important. Yeah, so Savary is asking us, as you previously said, ethics play a vital role in the metaverse. Negative elements in real life will definitely come inside the metaverse too. True. In this case, how do you predict certain disastrous situation? How do you prevent it? Moreover, how can the metaverse act as a catalyst for a positive behavior change of such elements? Well, there is a that's a very good question though. We there is always a control over this digital metaverse which you cannot have in the real world. You know, let's say for example there is a mob, there is a shooting, in one of the schools in the US, where these extremist shooters would go and shoot all the students. You don't have control over the situation. I mean, of course, by this I don't mean that we should stop actual schools and go with the complete digital schools. You would all love it, but still, it's not a good thing. Uh, we, in that sense, have to think that we don't have control over such things. Okay, we can have good law and stuff, but we've always seen what has happened. So in this metaverse, we can probably just imagine, there's something that is happening, and you can just probably do control shift delete, and that's it. You probably just press shift delete, and this whole scene, this whole thing just gets deleted, and the negativity stoppage is already there. So I would say we have much more control in the metaverse than in the real world or in the real universe. So okay, is the metaverse going to be? Ayushi is asking, is the metaverse going to be widely accepted? Even teenagers nowadays are questioning innovative ideas. Uh, I don't know those teenagers who are questioning the innovative ideas. I would rather expect innovative ideas from the students. Uh, it will be opposed. Let's say, most of the people who are over here, PUBG is opposed. Okay, PUBG is opposed a lot, but I'm just putting a perspective over here, not taking sides. Okay, everything in limit is good. um, if you see PUBG or Fortnite, or people who've played multiplayer games, I would ask them how many friends you've made over PUBG. You might have had entire groups whom you've been a part of. So uh, these things were not possible back 10 years ago, when we were using Microsoft Messenger, or probably Orkut or something. These things were not possible. So uh, you know I was saying that PUBG or Fortnite, such games would definitely interest the teenagers as gaming platforms. But when we see these platforms getting involved into being a part of the metaverse, it's much more, I would say, inclusive. It's much more collaborative. It's much more collaborative. I mean, it's beyond our imagination. So I would recommend having look at the current situation of the virtual reality ecosystem. So probably getting hold of one of the VR headsets when you go back to your school, NMIMS. They have a VR lab with them. So get hold of a VR device and get into a social environment. You would not believe what all is possible. So even when the internet came in, people questioned. Even when the smartphones came in, people questioned. But you see, aren't smartphones helping us? Aren't computers helping us? When computers came in, people were questioning the self-reliance of human beings. Are we not doing our own work and computers are doing? But computers are helping us. It's like asking whether or not robots are going to help us. Are robots going to take over it? But it's always a balance that we need to maintain as mankind. I hope you guys agree with me. So Arushi from third year is asking us, what about virtual cybercrime? It's something that has been a concern. Do you have a system where you can keep the cybercrime in check so that it is more safe for people to use? Yes, of course. There would be a virtual police. There might be a virtual army. There might be virtual navy, air force, everything in this metaverse. So of course, we will not have boundaries. We are trying to create that universe which we always imagine to be more free, much more liberal, much more inclusive, and resolve the problems, get away from the harsh reality for a lot of people, where the reality is a struggle. So that's what we look at, and I think cybercrime, of course, will be in check. So it's a whole separate discussion of how we can keep the crime in check. So I mean, of course, with time and this thing, I can probably skip to the next question. Metaverse seems like, so Zeel Shah is asking us, metaverse seems like a pleasure for humans, especially in gaming. Ethics can be seriously bent. How does this not turn into Westworld? Of course, yeah. It see, I have not seen Westworld, but I've always heard of it. Uh, uh, there is there is a bent in 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 the West world, as in in the West Hollywood area. They always like to show the future as a dystopian future. Everything is going to end, it's going to be catastrophic, and it's going to be this that. We should think that if mankind has always been affected by sci-fi movies, why not create movies which are more utopian, which are not really that dystopian. It can always turn bad, but you always, as as designers or contributors to this metaverse, can stop things from going there. So and yes, metaverse is evolved from gaming industry, and it is one of the biggest contributors into this entire thing. Rishi Juneja, since you said the multiplayer games are much more collaborative and it's not just about gaming, so does this mean that metaverse is a multiverse? Yes, it is. It could be. There is a possibility that, so people who don't know what a multiverse is, there could be parallel realities. People who are fans of Marvel and DC already know what multiverse means. Or probably you could watch a movie, Spider-Man Multiverse, and you will get an insight of what a multiverse means. But there could be multiverse, of course, because this entire thing is a combination of software and hardware, like we have seen in the slide. So yes, it could be. Um, Ayushi again is asking us, what would be the biggest advantage of a metaverse? Just a personal opinion. So my personal opinion, I think the biggest advantage of metaverse is bypassing our biological limitations. And while I'm saying this, I'm getting goosebumps. My brother lives in the US, and I always wait for him to come back so that we could play table tennis in my society clubhouse. For 1.5 years, I have to just wait for him to come back. And I've always told him to get hold of an Oculus Quest 2. So we are considering it. He is happy to buy one, spend $400 on it. And if he does that, I can not only play once, but probably play table tennis with him every evening. Or somebody who is working in the Far East, or probably in the Middle East, and having most of their family in India. Lot of people from Kerala and a lot of people from Tamil Nadu. They go and work in the Middle East. Uh, um, it's difficult, and a lot of people from the engineering background as well. They go for masters in the US. So it's I mean, you know just think about it, how big of a boon it could be, being with your loved ones always, despite, no pandemic could ever touch us. uh, so that's how we could really fight, and we never know how many years this whole pandemic thing is going to be. It's gone beyond our control. So and it would be very idealistic to think that we should change our ways of life and stuff. Everybody is trying to make a world a better place, but it's not an overnight job. And in the meanwhile, we can just have a technological invention that solves our problems. Yeah, Hetvi Shah in the fourth year asking, we know of VR's constraints, whether it is the constricted space or at times limited functions. Could you tell us what would be the constraints or difficulties faced by the users when they use the metaverse? Well, Hetvi, uh, this is with respect to the hardware part of the system and the software part of the system. Um, I, you might not believe me when I say that the latest devices that I've seen, and the amount of immersion it offers is impeccable. You will completely lose yourself when you are into it. Let's say, for example, I'll just give an example. You can try out the Oculus Quest 2 and or the Oculus Quest and play Beat Saber on it. I'm not a gamer. Okay, I would use VR for much other purposes, like training the Indian Army for the worst situations or the worst attacks, or probably training our Indian Air Force for using the most advanced Rafale aircrafts or something like that. So I would use it for that. I'm not a gamer, but you can experience a game called the Beat Saber on the Oculus Quest, and just with the goal that you want to get fit, play Beat Saber for an hour every day, and I bet you within 21 days you are bound to lose 5 kgs. Don't do that if you're below 50. I mean below 50 kgs. So I'm just kidding. This whole thing, constraints of VR are there. The device is bulky. It sometimes looks funny. People get nausea in VR. You have, like you said, physical space limitations, but the newer systems, will be much more usable. Uh, just wait for 2 years, you will see the change happening. Apple is coming with one, Google is coming with one. Um, Ultimately, the VR process is just going to be like this. So that's how it is going to be. And within 10 years, things will be very different. People questioned, Steve Ballmer was the ex-CEO of Microsoft. He questioned Apple, why would you remove buttons from an iPhone? I mean, from a phone. Buttons are so very important for emailing and communication. I mean, I need not even explain further what happened. They came up with touchscreen phones and it changed this entire thing. It changed this entire industry ecosystem, and not only that, and our lives. Just think about how touchscreen has affected us as humans, uh, and so many things. And not only touchscreen. Think about how App Store or Play Store has affected us. Downloading apps and using them. People have created billions and billions of businesses just on this, um, you know, just on this technological invention. The App Store and the Play Store. Uber is on the Play Store. Zomato is on the Play Store. Everything that you do, at least 5 or 6 hours of your day, it's on your smartphone. So back 10 years ago, when smartphones started, like not 10 years ago, but 2007 when iPhone came and people questioned it, and it did have constraints, but things change and they're changing really, really fast. Okay. So we have one more question. Ananya Bhardwaj, who is asking us, leading tech companies often try to instill addictive behaviors in their users to keep up engagement. Do these problems have a chance of being contained and restricted in the future on a global scale? Yes, they do. I agree. Leading companies would do that, but metaverse would more than be controlled by a single company. It's much more going to be like user generated content. Imagine like YouTube. Okay, YouTube is not controlled by a company. YouTube is controlled by its users. Okay, not in the sense of business control, but in sense of the content that is there on YouTube. Every millions of videos get uploaded on YouTube every day. So the whole content on YouTube is user generated. So the chance of it getting controlled by a single organization or a bunch of organizations is less than than it's there currently. Okay, so people are getting aware. We are much more moving towards the digital age, so we will not allow that, and we will definitely have control over what content goes in and what all we can watch and see and stuff. So I feel user generated content is the solution to this problem. Yep. So I think that's it.
So I had one last question.
Sure, go for it.
Um, So it's like a very random thought because I read this article which says that in the coming 10 years, every single person will be having specs, and due to the increasing excessive screen time, because we don't have any option in the pandemic. But all this thing, like this will be virtual, of course. So won't that be affecting the eyesight, like in a big way?
Um, that wouldn't affect the eyesight. Rather, it would help the eyesight. I think you must be thinking that I'm being very much biased towards this whole thing, but that's not true. Is because what I've heard of is the new Apple glasses would be not only smart glasses but also prescription lenses. So your normal glass could actually turn into this immersive virtual reality glasses. Um, Whether or not it affects the eyesight is something that we would come to know once it is out there. I'm specifically talking about these glass like devices. Um, but I guess most of these companies are much more inclined towards the user's health. Look at the invention of Apple Watch. It has bypassed normal watches business revenue. Like, it does revenue of like 7-8 times than what Rolex does. So, number one watch brand. Why has that happened? Is because people are more concerned about their health, and they use Apple Watch. Not only Apple Watch, take for example any fitness bands. So these companies know that users want health as their prerogative. So if you see the latest version of all these smartwatches, all of them come with this SpO2 sensor where you can see your oxygen saturation. So they know what people want, and they would create what people want. But and there they would obviously consider this as a big roadblock. And it's not only you, but a lot of people in the industry feel that you know wearable technologies could in an adverse way affect the human body. But that's where a lot of people are researching, and I don't think that's going to stop them from creating the solution or creating this technology. We have one more. Does that answer my question?
Yes, sir, definitely.
No question, sorry. Rajita Rahul asks us, because metaverse will bring the experience home. How will VR overcome the loss in economy caused by total reduction in travel? Well, as of now, it's in fact helping travelers, because people usually what they do. So how I have provided solution to tourism companies is that you want to go for 10 locations, and you would visit those 10 locations in a very brief way in virtual reality, and shortlist three out of them, and then you would actually speak to the tourism organizer about three of them, and give a quote on them, and then you would go for the best one you like. So whether it be property shortlisting or travel tourism shortlisting, that's where VR is helping right now. But in the future, metaverse could definitely impact travel uh, in a very adverse way. But um, I would say we might be compelled to not travel, is because think about companies. How much do you think companies like TCS or Infosys spends in their employees' travel? It's in millions. And imagine when the metaverse exists, they would feel no need to travel. Of course, the tourism industry is one. So people like me, I'm much more influenced by the reality, the real. I'm much more influenced by the historic sites we have in India, or rather in the world. I would love to go and physically see them. You know, so I would still go despite the metaverse being there. But the metaverse is actually helping people who can't travel, probably helping people who don't want to spend in travel for some other work. So the last one, I'll probably take. We have the time of 6:30, so
Yeah.
yeah. Ayushi is asking us, as metaverse is the next frontier for online interaction, what can marketing and communication professionals do in order to cope up with this change? Yeah, you would still need to market. Imagine, so we actually build an entire virtual expo platform, which is going to be launched in the UK. It's called as Simply Expo. Okay, so it's like, on your computer you would like to play these first person games. You'd see a 3D environment and you can roam around in this 3D environment. So in there we've created like 3D stalls. We would have virtual presenters there, and so it's just a shift from physical to digital. Marketing or communication doesn't stop. It's going to make things easier for marketing people and communication professionals to demonstrate what they're trying to sell in a metaverse, because the client would not need to physically come over to see your stuff. You can bring, let's say for example, you manufacture trucks and you have 20 different trucks. You can take 24 different trucks to the client place in the current scenario. But in the metaverse you can place all those trucks, all those tractors, all those cars in front of that person, make him sit in every car, and then let the person shortlist it. So that's how it can empower the whole marketing and communications industry. And that's what we've been doing. We've done that for a pharma company which has like 20 machines. We put all the 20 machines in VR, and 500 to 600 people saw all the machines in a matter of couple of days in one of their exhibitions that happened before the pandemic. So sitting at home, you can do wonders in marketing.
I think we are done with our question and answer session. Thank you very much, sir, for sharing your thoughts with us. It was really interesting to know about the future possibilities through metaverse. I mean, we never knew metaverse could involve so many different things at once. Um, so let us end the event with a few words from our director, Professor Manisha Farke.
Oh wow, she's here. I didn't know that.
Hi, how would you think I'm not here? Thank you, Krupalu, for giving us.
For you in the list.
So thank you so much for a talk, but a lot of conversation. It almost became a forum of discussion, and it was a good thought about bringing the extended reality and the linking between that to metaverse. I think the opportunity, as you rightly said, is about metaphysical also, and maybe not a dystopian word, but a utopian word. So what we really miss in this world, we can create that and maybe correct your eyesight in a way so that you don't need the specs in that world. So I think with that very positive thought, thank you so much. And we look forward to having you over in physical presence as well.
Sure. And I hope I've offered enough insight in how the designers could take an approach towards this future of designing immersive experiences, not only 2D interfaces that we are currently in. And I would love to see what innovation these students would bring in with your guidance and your institute's fabulous set of faculty people.
Thank you for the trust, and students, no pressure.
Yeah, there's never a pressure.
Yeah.
But my experience has been great. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am.